My name is Larry, and I live in Seattle, Washington. I am a microbiologist. I'm a researcher. I work at the university here in a research laboratory. And I am from Colorado originally. I've lived here in Seattle for 20 years. I grew up in Colorado. I had a great family. There were 4 kids in the family. I'm the second oldest. My parents were both physicists. They worked also in the academic world at the University of Colorado. So I grew up in the city of Boulder, which is a very outdoorsy, beautiful place in Colorado. My family were not religious. In fact, they were very strong atheists. They believed that there is no God. And so I was raised in that belief system. There are many great things about it because they were very careful about how they thought about the world. They were very progressive in their views. They believed in social justice, and they encouraged all of their children to strive for, to achieve many things in life, to be good people. We were a very active family. We did many things, many sports. We participated in a lot of sports. We did a lot of things outside. We were all expected to do well in school. We did a lot of outdoor sports, so skiing, hiking, camping. We spent a lot of time outdoors when we were children. My parents originally built a house in the mountains near Boulder when I was just around the time I was born, and I lived there until I was 10 years old, at which time they realized that there were many activities that we wanted to do in the town, in the city, so we moved down to Boulder. I did a lot of rock climbing. I spent a lot of time doing that. Bicycling, playing basketball. My parents were actually divorced when I was 12, and then, but they arranged for all 4 of their children to stay together, and they had a shared custody arrangement. I wasn't always a good student, but in junior high and high school, I was always good at the sciences and math. But I enjoyed school. I liked academic world, and I liked learning things. And I liked developing knowledge about many different fields. And then I went to college. I originally went to college in California for about a year and a half at Santa Cruz, and I didn't know what I was going to study. I was taking classes in mathematics and physics and some other coursework. I think I was somewhat unprepared to be completely on my own, away from my family, and I was in a stage of trying to learn about who I really was and understand my place in the world. And I realized that the perspectives I had didn't always work in different situations. So I actually became fairly unhappy in my first college experience. So I moved back home. I was out of school for a while. I worked for a bit, and I just spent time with friends. And then I returned to college in Boulder at the university there. And I had decided that I was interested in developing aspects of myself that were not so that were sort of new, things that I hadn't spent a lot of time attending to, like my social skills, my emotional development, and although I wouldn't have used the term, also spiritual aspects of life, because I was raised with no spiritual education. I went back to school and I decided to study theater because it was a real departure. It was very different from the upbringing I'd had and the things I was familiar with, but I liked it for the social aspect of it and because it pushed me to develop social skills, develop ways of interacting that I wasn't as comfortable with. So I got a fine arts degree in acting at the University of Colorado. I was very immersed in that for a while, made many friends. Then after I graduated, I didn't know fully what I wanted to do, but I moved to New York City. I lived there for about a year and a half. I originally went because some friends started a theater company there and invited me to come and try out for one of the plays that they were producing. And it was just, sort of a new direction in life that I thought I would try, so I went there. Sort of throughout my childhood and throughout my college years, I'd done a lot of rock climbing. My older sister, who was in medical school at the time, introduced me to friends of hers who were Baha'is, and one of whom was a rock climber, a woman named Roz. And I think my sister thought that I would get along well with them, and so she introduced us, and I began rock climbing with this person. And in the course of that sort of experience, I learned a little bit about the Baha'i faith. I think, although I wasn't at a state at the time where I was consciously seeking a religion or a spiritual discipline of any kind, but I really liked the Baha'is that I met. They had a very positive outlook, and they had they seemed to sincerely care about me and other people that I knew, which was refreshing to me because although I had been raised in a family that valued achievement and valued personal development, it was a bit of a competitive environment, and it was one that didn't value as much sort of qualities, being of service to others. There was a bit of a one-upsmanship and also a criticalness about people or things that were different. And so when I met the Baha'is, I found these people who were very positive, very intelligent, very interested in the world, but also very interested in serving and just sincerely and genuinely caring about people. So it was moving to me, and I think that sort of planted some seeds for me in terms of how I wanted to develop myself personally. Then I went to I moved to New York. After I'd been in New York for a few months, my sister and our mutual Baha'i friend and I decided to go on a trip together, and we traveled to Indonesia. During the time that I had initially been in New York, my friend had given me some of the Baha'i writings, and I had been reading them, and those had had a deep impact on me. They really affected me in my soul in a very profound way, because to me, what it means to be a human being that weren't kind of nurtured in my childhood. By that I mean, in my childhood, there was a lot of sense of like, you must achieve. There was a strong value of the importance of the individual, and sort of becoming better than others at certain things. Whereas when I read the Baha'i writings, I realized that they spoke to me in a way that made me able to let go of that need to feed the ego. The Baha'i writings made me realize that the inner peace, the places of inner peace and renunciation were actually a higher place in some ways. And that to be of service to people was really a higher reality than outperforming somebody. So anyway, I had been reading the Baha'i writings. Then the three of us went on the trip to Indonesia, and that was a strong experience. We traveled to different places in Indonesia. One of the places we visited was some of my friends' relatives who were Baha'is, who were pioneers, who were living there in Indonesia. They had been there for many years. They had helped build up a local Baha'i community. So I was able to spend time with them and see who they were, and have discussions with my friend. It was at that point that I started to really study the Baha'i faith, and not just through the experience of how I felt about my friends or how I felt internally from reading these Baha'i writings, but also studying what the teachings were, understanding the theology of the Baha'i faith, understanding what it taught about the nature of reality, about the nature of God, and about our place in history and where humanity is going. And it was through sort of a combination of the deep inner transformation that I felt, the way that the writings touched me inwardly, and sort of a rational investigation of what these teachings were about, that confirmed me as a believer. And I realized that it was very exciting to sort of have my eyes opened in that way and see this new perspective on reality. It was a bit of some ways a risky thing for me to decide that I wanted to become a member of the Baha'i faith, because my family members were, there was a lot of stigma, just negative belief about religion in general. This thought that to belong to a religion is to not be rational, and to belong to a religion is that faith is anti-rational. It's the opposite of science and things like that. And it's a sign of weakness to rely upon faith as a way to view reality or understand the world. And so I was cautious. I was a little unsure about how my family members would react, and for the most part, they received it positively, though so far none of them, except perhaps my mom, who passed away a few years after that, has been able to sort of get past that. Before I learned about the faith specifically, I had strong feelings that there must be truths within religion, or there must be aspects of religious teaching which have deep wisdom or very deep realities within them that is the reason that they've persisted and the reason that they exist. And I could see parallels between the teachings of different religions that made me think that they're not just some irrational way of explaining the world. I really wanted to understand what the wisdom is within those spiritual teachings. And the Baha'i faith helped me a lot because they helped me see that the religious teachings are not irrational, even though they're sort of super rational. They're not. But as I studied the Baha'i faith, I realized that true religion does not contradict what we learn from science. It may describe a different reality than what we're able to really study using the scientific methods, but it doesn't mean that it's not real. And so that led me to a lot of reconciliation within myself about my attraction towards spirituality and religious teachings and the value of these things and how they help humanity, and my sort of passion about careful thinking and what we're learning about the material world. So I was able to reconcile those in a way that allowed me to embrace them both. I'd been trained as an actor, and I wasn't getting work as an actor, and I wasn't actually that interested in living as an actor. I wanted to have a more steady job. So, and I'd always been good at science, so I decided to go back to school. So I went back to school. I went back to Colorado. I studied biology, molecular biology, and then I moved to Seattle for graduate school. So I came here in 1996, and so that was 20 years ago. That was right when my mom passed away, so that was a hard time. And then I went through, I don't know, I went through graduate school, which was a 5-year process. You know, difficult, a lot of studying. And then I got the job that I have now. That was about 12 or 13 years ago. Throughout that time, I was active in the Baha'i community here in Seattle. I've done a lot of service projects and teaching activities, and I got married just 3 years ago. My wife moved here about 6 or 7 years ago, and I got to know her, and we decided to get married. Our son was born 8 months ago. So now life is very different, you know, but it's great.
Good job, Esther. Yeah. Oh. Oh.
Your past doesn't matter. If your heart is searching, the answer will come like a breeze.